think we hear the president. Let's tune in.
With the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. You know, it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use, but no, we don't. We expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not under too much danger. So, any questions?
Mr. President, does the issue give you any?
As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire them.
Do you think this issue, Mr. President, gives you cause to do that?
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started. But it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time, because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So,
President, are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what can I tell you? The country's doing really well. I just briefed the chairman on the deal we made with Japan. Japan is putting up $550 billion in order to lower their tariffs a little bit.
إخواننا الدروز في جنوب سوريا لمصالحهم لا يمكننا أن نقف متفرجين أمام مشاهد الفظاعة التي تتكشف في السويداء. التقيت اليوم بالشيخ موفق طريف زعيم الطائفة الدرزية في إسرائيل، وقد قلت له بأننا على ضوء سياستنا على ضوء المزارات الفظيعة ستصبح أوضح. علينا أن ننزع السلاح من منطقة الواقعة جنوب دمشق، وصورة أكبر سنساعد ونحمي الدروز.
Zelensky doesn't respect anyone, not us Ukrainians, not you Americans, not Europeans. He doesn't care what you think. You are paying him from your own pockets, and he's stealing your money. What happens in Ukraine decides whether a big war will start in Europe. But Zelensky wants to keep spending your money and stop you from even checking how it's used. He's destroying the anti-corruption agencies you created with your money, $500 million. Here's what I want to say to people in the US and EU. You might not like what I'm about to say, but it's truth. He doesn't respect you, not the citizens of the US, the EU, or the UK. He thinks you're fools. You sent money to help Ukrainians, and he steals it. He's already one of the richest people in the world. He doesn't respect us, his own people, and he doesn't respect your support. How do we change this? Only one way: audit Ukraine. That's exactly what Zelensky is afraid of. That's why he destroyed NABU, the anti-corruption agency. Demand the audit in the media, in the comments. Let's pressure on your politicians together. They're the only one way to save us, and you, and the whole world.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We are on the ground still in Yerevan, Armenia. We will be here in country for at least a week. And we're going to bring you a lot of content that we want you to understand, because this impacts the global situation we're facing with the attempted destruction of Christianity, the imposition of tyranny across the world, and just literally globalism, which is evil and working to destroy humanity. One of the things I want to get across to you is the Christianization of Armenia, the first Christian country, then spread up into Kiev and into Moscow. And you see why the globalists want to destroy this region with the Ukraine war, with what's going on in Romania, against the church as well, against the church in Ukraine, because this was the third and fourth Holy Roman Empire from once the West fell, once Rome fell. This Constantinople and on up was where it all was happening with Christianity. And it's why there's such a focus on this region of the world, and why we want to bring you the story over the next few days of what's happening in Armenia. We talked about the Prime Minister Pashinyan trying to destroy the church. We talked about that yesterday. Today, we're going to show you one of the big cathedrals. It's about 30 years old. It was built in Yerevan, St. Gregory the Illuminator. That cathedral, we took a trip there yesterday, and we're going to just show you a little bit of that. But I also want to play for you a little later a story of how Armenia became Christianized with Gregory the Illuminator. I think you'll find that interesting. We'll do that in the second segment. But I am L Todd Wood. Today is July 25th, and this is your mission brief. Matt Lohmeier is finally confirmed as Undersecretary of the Air Force. Big deal. We at CDM were the first people to interview Lohmeier when he released his book several years ago, The Irresistible Revolution, Marxism in the Department of Defense. He was fired because of that. I saw him at Mar-a-Lago last year in December, and I said, "Hey, Matt, we want another interview." And he's like, "Well, I don't want to get fired. Let me get confirmed first." So Matt has been confirmed as Undersecretary of the Air Force. He's a friend of the show. We've known him a long time, and a close personal friend. And we will bring you how he attempts to right the ship with our beloved Air Force and the rest of DOD. Fake study on vaccines and autism. This is all coming out. There's a big hullabaloo in the press about vaccines and how all of this causation with autism was fake. And because the aluminum study that came out said there was no relation, well, the data was all faked. So that came out yesterday. We'll talk about that in the second segment. Greenhouse gases are removed by the EPA and the Trump administration from dangerous substances. This is huge. It shuts down the whole climate scam. Another massive move that's not getting a lot talked about in the press. We talk about it here because we bring you what is important. Israel has annexed the West Bank. Just flat out, the Knesset annexed it yesterday. Not a lot in the press except from us. Interesting how that is. So we'll talk about that. And will an Iran cyber attack bring about more surveillance like the Patriot Act? All of that is really important. I want to say hello to the crew. You're cleared hot in the chat. Thank you for all the engagement while we're on the road. And please visit whatfinger.com daily. Put it in your daily scan. They're our good partner for aggregation. They post a lot of our content, but put cdm.press in your scan daily. We're on podcast. We're on X. We're on Gettr. We're on YouTube. Gets posted after the show. And just a lot going on here at CDM. We're up all night, literally all over the world, bringing you content that you need to know. We don't post everything, but we post what you need to know. So you'll be the smartest in the room, at work, at the water cooler, in church, at dinner, at the cocktail party, whatever. So we're going to be out in the field today. We're going to be visiting one of the first church at Miazdin, in Yerevan, outside of Yerevan. And we'll bring you that next week. And we're also going to be visiting the several different places in Armenia, but also the Genocide Museum. We're going to talk next week about the genocide of the Christians here and how that relates to today. It's fascinating, actually. And then to close out the show today, the Euro Bytes team is going to bring you an update, a snapshot of what's happening on the continent. So a lot going on in the show today. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the SCIF.
my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back, cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're going to run through some stories now, and then we're going to talk about the Christianization of Armenia. It's very important because there is an attempt to destroy Christianity, and especially in this part of the world. We're one of the only media outlets talking about it in a comprehensive manner, and we're here on the ground in Yerevan, Armenia, to go through all of this, so you get a picture of what's understand what's going on in this region of the world. We have the Ukraine war. We've had Bob Amsterdam on, the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, many times and gone through everything that's happening in Ukraine. So you're well up to speed on that. If you're not, you can go to our Rumble channel and just search for Bob Amsterdam, and all the interviews we've done with him will come up on what is going on in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and the attack on it in Ukraine and the destruction of Christianity by the Zelensky regime. We're going to shift to Romania at some point in the future because it's happening there as well. But we're on the ground here in Yerevan, Armenia, and visiting different sites. And the attack on the Christian church here, the Orthodox, the Armenian Apostolic Church, is a thing. And the prime minister is a globalist puppet who is doing the same thing Zelensky is, just in a slightly different manner. But he's arresting priests. He's put together, as we said yesterday and talked about, a dossier on the head of the church, very Trump, Russia-like, and attempting to take over the church, take over the properties, destroy the ability of literally, this, just like in Ukraine, a 1,000-year-old church, this is a 2,000-year-old Christian church. It was Christianized in 301, not quite 2,000 years, but close to it. And the first Christian cathedral, which we're visiting later today, we will show you some of that next week, is out there. But some of the stories I just want to talk about, we mentioned Matt Lohmeier, who's a good friend of ours, who is now confirmed as the Undersecretary of the Air Force. Huge win. I was thinking they were going to delay this forever, but Matt is the guy that wrote Irresistible Revolution, about the Marxist takeover of the DoD. They fired him as a commander of Space Command. He's a former F-16 pilot, Air Force Academy grad, like me. And so we are very close friends. And Matt is confirmed. And that's just really good for our Air Force and for our Department of Defense. And I can't wait to see how he works to get rid of DOI and make our Air Force as powerful as it needs to be to kill people and break things, which is the mission of the Air Force, under the direction of the civilian department, civilian leadership, of course, and political leadership. But that is the mission of the Air Force, not some kind of societal experiment with DEI, Marxism, identity politics, all of that. So that's hugely, hugely positive for Matt, and we're really happy for him. And we're going to stay on that story as well, because he's got a lot to do and a lot to bring to the DoD. Calls grow for this study on vaccines and aluminum, which was a Danish study, but they found out they faked the data. They were trying to show, to look at, as in RFK Jr. has said, we're going to look at the causation and the safety of these vaccines. And they did a study that showed, well, there's no relation from the aluminum in the vaccines to autism. Well, they faked all the data. So you can find this from Children's Self-Defense on CDM and look into this. And we want to talk about this because they're lying. And this is one of the ways they're hurting human health. And it needs to be talked about and understood. So please take some time and go to that story and look at that and understand exactly what's going on with the autism link and vaccines, because it really is a thing, especially if you have children or grandchildren, you have children having children. Talk to them about this so they understand and can make an educated decision on whether to vaccinate their children. That's the big deal. Now, Israel has annexed the West Bank. This is huge. The Knesset voted 71 to a smaller number to annex the West Bank. They call it Judea and Samaria. It is now going to be part of Israel. This is obviously hugely problematic in the Arab world and in the Palestinian cause. And this is the project of Greater Israel to acquire land and get Jewish control over more land in the Levant. I think that's just obvious as to what's going on. We're not taking a side on this. We just want to give you the information that's out there so you can make a good decision as to what is right and wrong in the Middle East and to how to find peace of this never-ending conflict, it seems. So go to our Israeli site, Zionism.com, where we talk about the Zionist movement, and you can get a better grip on what's happening with that situation in Gaza as well. We do a lot of reporting there, in Syria, and the continuing war in Yemen, and possibly another strike on Iran. President Trump talked about that the other day, that we will strike again if they continue to develop weapons. That's a thing. And, we just got to stay up on these wars because they're not stopping, even though President Trump ran on stopping those wars. So far, they're not stopping. There's another article out on, and I want you to be aware of this also, will an Iran cyber attack panic usher in a new Patriot Act? There's a lot of momentum to bring in more surveillance on you and more surveillance on your children's future. And they're going to use false flags likely to do that. There's a lot of talk of an Iranian cyber attack. Is that the next 9/11 in order to bring in the Patriot Act 2.0? So you can take a look at that article and see if that is something that is true or just a lot of fear mongering, but we think it is a thing and needs to be discussed. So again, I'd like you to spend some time on these articles. We're not going to dig into everything so much right now because we're on the road. So you got some homework to do and go look at some of this stuff on cdm.press. Also, a big one is that Trump, as his EPA is removing the greenhouse gases as dangerous substances. This is massive. And you can read about this, but the whole climate scam thing was, okay, we have climate change, greenhouse gases are bad, when in actuality they provide life to the world. And it was in a way to destroy economies and destroy the growth of humanity. So this is a massive, massive, massive move, and the Trump administration should be commended for doing that. Now let's look at the last article we have, I just want to take a look at the stories we need to get out here. So that looks like it. Now we're going to play the history of the Christianization of Armenia. Let me take that down. So we're going to do that. And then the Euro Bytes team is going to come in and finish out the show with, as we are on the road all day today and out getting video. And we're going to have a lot next week, a lot of content. We've been working in country, out in the field now for days, and we've got to process all this over the weekend and get it to you next week. So we're going to play the history of the Christianization of Armenia, the Gregory, the Illuminator, and then the Euro Bytes team will come in and finish out the show with a snapshot of what's going on politically across Europe. As always, the team really has insight that you won't get anywhere else, literally. And so stay tuned for that. We'll be back on the SCIF. We're going to take a break. Then we'll play the video for the history of Armenia as its Christianization back in 300s. And then we'll go to Euro Bytes, and that'll be the show. And we'll be back Monday, 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday on the SCIF. And the Georgia show will be Sunday at 2 p.m. So come back for that. So we'll be, I won't be back on this show because we're out in the field, but we'll play the rest of what we mentioned there, and then we'll see you Monday. So thank you for joining us on the SCIF, and enjoy the rest of the show. So this is St. Gregory the Illuminator's Cathedral. It was built in the 1990s here in Yerevan. It's the chief cathedral here in Yerevan for the Armenian Apostolic Church, the Orthodox Church. And we're going to show you the facility now. It's very beautiful. It's more minimalistic than some of the older cathedrals, but it's incredibly beautiful, just stylish. Now this is the church that Prime Minister Pashinyan is looking to call his own and take over. He's put several priests in jail. He has built a dossier on the head of the church here in Armenia, and is looking to do very much like what they tried to do with President Trump, discredit the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, this is the first Christian country. Soon we're going to visit the first Christian cathedral outside of Yerevan, but this is the church that Pashinyan wants to take over. It's not sitting well with the Armenian people. This is L Todd Wood with CDM. We'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Ancient land of Armenia. Under the rule of King Tiridates III, paganism flourished. The king, a fierce and powerful ruler, staunchly upheld the worship of the gods of his ancestors. Yet, in the shadows, a different force was brewing, a force that would reshape the very soul of Armenia. Gregory, later known as Saint Gregory the Illuminator, was born into a noble Parthian family around 257 AD. Tragedy struck early in his life when his father, Anak, was involved in the murder of the Armenian king Khosrov II. As retribution, Gregory's entire family was executed, but Gregory survived and fled to Cappadocia, where he was raised as a Christian.
Before we jump into today's video, we have something special just for you. Ever wanted to learn Hebrew? Now's your chance, and it's never been easier. We're offering you the opportunity to join our beginner Hebrew class, and here's the best part. You set your own budget. That's right. You decide how much you want to invest in your Hebrew learning journey, and we'll review your registration to make it work for you. And to make things even better, we're giving you 3 free introductory classes to get you started. No commitments, just a chance to see how amazing learning Hebrew can be.
Of a shoresh, one of our 3-letter shoresh is shorshim. It means the future tense, you shall.
So what are you waiting for? Seize this opportunity to dive into a new language and culture today. Click the link in the description to sign up and begin your Hebrew journey now. All right, let's get back to the video.
Years later, Gregory returned to Armenia, determined to spread the Christian faith. However, his mission was fraught with peril. Upon revealing his Christian beliefs, he was captured by King Tiridates III, who saw Christianity as a threat to his kingdom's traditional values and power. Gregory was condemned to die in the Kor Virup, a deep, dark pit where criminals were left to perish. For 13 long years, Gregory languished in the depths of Kor Virup. The pit was cold, dark, and damp, infested with snakes and scorpions. Yet, Gregory's faith did not waver. He prayed fervently, his spirit sustained by visions of a brighter future for Armenia, future bathed in the light of Christ. Unbeknownst to him, a compassionate Christian woman secretly provided him with bread and water, ensuring his survival. During these years of suffering, Gregory's resolve only strengthened, his spirit unyielding despite the crushing darkness that surrounded him. While Gregory suffered in the pit, King Tiridates III was tormented by his own inner demons. A curse, believed to be divine retribution, afflicted the king, transforming him into a beastly figure, driving him to madness. His kingdom, too, began to crumble under the weight of supernatural afflictions. Desperate and without hope, the king's sister, Khosrow-Vedut, experienced a divine vision. She saw Gregory, the imprisoned Christian, as the key to their salvation. She pleaded with the court to release Gregory, but her pleas initially fell on deaf ears. Finally, the king, consumed by his suffering, relented. Emaciated but unbroken, Gregory was lifted from the pit. The sight of daylight after 13 years was blinding, yet he was guided by an inner light. He was brought before the king, who lay prostrate, his mind shattered by his affliction. Gregory, with a heart full of compassion and divine power, prayed over the king, invoking the name of Jesus Christ. In a miraculous moment, King Tiridates III was healed. His beastly visage faded, and his sanity was restored. Overwhelmed by this divine intervention, the king knelt before Gregory, renouncing his pagan gods and embracing Christianity. With the king's conversion, a monumental transformation swept across Armenia. Gregory was appointed as the first Catholicos of the Armenian Church, and he began the work of baptizing the king's court and the people of Armenia. The royal decree was issued. Christianity would be the state religion. Gregory, now known as Saint Gregory the Illuminator, traveled throughout the kingdom, preaching the gospel, building churches, and spreading the Christian faith. One of his most significant contributions was the establishment of the Echmiadzin Cathedral, which remains the spiritual heart of Armenian Christianity to this day. Saint Gregory the Illuminator's life is a testament to the power of faith and perseverance. From the dark pit of Korviruk to the illumination of an entire nation, his journey reflects the triumph of light over darkness. His legacy endures in the Armenian Apostolic Church, which continues to be a pillar of Armenian identity and spirituality. Armenia's conversion to Christianity in 301 AD under Saint Gregory's guidance marked the beginning of a new era. It forged a path that blended the ancient traditions of Armenia with the teachings of Christ, creating a unique and enduring Christian heritage that has withstood the test of time.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and will...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Euro Bytes. This is the episode from July 21st, 2025. Today with me is Christian. Hello.
Lucas. Good to see you.
Lucas. And today we're going to host the podcast as a group of 2. You recall that typically either Todd and or Fabian's part of the podcast. Both are currently traveling. So it's going to be very much a UK and Germany-centric podcast with a hint of a Swiss surprise. Christian, let's dive right in. You've brought 3 topics from the UK, you brought 2 from the UK.
Yes.
Want to head right in?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, the UK, there's rarely good news from the UK these days, and today is no exception. But every now and then there is an encouraging story that there's a residual bit of rule of law and a residual courage of judges doing actually their role. And one of these judges finished a super injunction. Now, dear viewers, without legal background, what is an injunction and what is even a super injunction? So an injunction is essentially in the United Kingdom, in this particular context, is a court order that is typically used by the executive or just courts or the prosecution itself to not publish certain parts of a certain story, be that certain names because minors are involved or vulnerable people or whatever the state deems to be in the interest of, say, public security, overall, security policy, whatever that may be. Now, a super injunction is yet a totally different kind of beast. Not only are you not allowed to talk about certain facts, certain names, certain persons, you're not allowed to talk about that case at all. It doesn't exist for all practical purposes. And yes, Lucas, you're burning to say something.
That's something that we've got in Germany as well, with the first names of criminals when it comes to crimes against the sexual, liberty, or your basically crimes regarding sexuality. The AfD faction in the German Bundestag and certain German states at one point asked whether the authorities could list the names of the perpetrators after they refused to hand them a list of nationalities, and the list of Germans, or the the share of Germans was surprisingly high. But guess what? These Germans are called Mohammed, Ahmed, all these kind of names.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Yeah, so we get the picture. So super injunctions are used typically to prevent us talking. Injunctions or super injunctions are made to make us stop talking about certain things in the public interest, of course. Now, you may remember the narrative about immigration had been, well, yes, it really, really benefits us. So it makes us, as a society, makes us much richer because they bring all these kind of skills. And in Germany, because we have the skills gap, we need a lot of highly skilled labor. Now, that turned out to be not true. Even the far left is not trying to make that argument anymore. Then the fallback option of this as well. It overall makes us much, much richer as a society. The food is much, much better, and there's something to be said. But, there's the internet meme. We've got the recipes now. Thank you. You can go. Isn't it just great seeing lots of cultures overall? It can make us a lot stronger culture. But then suddenly we see types of crimes that we were not used to seeing, like just an absolute massive spike against sexual self-determination, or just, which is a euphemism of saying sexual crime, in very often in the form of group rape, which is something we had not known in Germany and the United Kingdom, let alone the industrial scale mass rape and sex trafficking of mainly young British white women. Now the authorities are kind of very, okay, we cannot spin that economic narrative, because it turns out in every single study that we have, they cost a lot of money, the people coming in, especially the people coming in illegally, which they have been doing in their thousands since the last couple of years, from France, across the channel into the United Kingdom. So, and the whole cultural enrichment thing, since the whole grooming gang scandal of the industrial rape of thousands of young British women and the group rape phenomena, the enrichment, nobody wants to talk about that all that much either. So the solution, let's not talk about it at all, but let's still bring in a lot more of these migrants nonetheless. We're coming now to the crux of the matter. The super injunction was against a scheme where the British Ministry of Defence inadvertently had leaked the number of thousands of British Army employees, many of them special forces, which is very, very sensitive, and some of their former Afghan allies. So now there was a scheme started under the quote-unquote conservative Tory party. I think the scheme started in 2021, if not 2022. Fact check me. I'm not hell-bent on these numbers. They're not the main issue here anyways. So 20,000 Afghan soldiers and their families were invited into the United Kingdom because their names had been leaked in a document. Now, interesting enough, the Taliban said, look, we knew that all along. We had a great amnesty because large parts of our society did collaborate with the Brits. So we've got no interest in throwing all that many and killing all that many of our own citizens. We still need a country to work. And I would like to put a footnote to that. Well, pretty much every German army soldiers will tell you that the Afghans always hedged their bets, meaning they took money from both sides. They were happy to take the money, being our allies, and very often being very unreliable allies. So, I mean, a German, the equivalent of Delta Force would be the German KSK, and a German KSK soldier a couple of years ago, so I think more than 12 years ago, to the day actually died when Afghan army special forces just abandoned the German KSK force, ran for the hills, and it also that the KSK was quite sure that they had tipped off the Taliban to the ambush. And I heard that time and again. I was in the German army infantry school in 2004, and a lot of guys returning from the mission said, look, very often they called Afghan civilians, rummaging through map rooms and all. So they're like, everybody knew they were hedging their bets. And you can't blame them, because Afghanistan has seen invaders coming and going, but their own people stay. So they always played both sides of the bets, and the Taliban knew that. So they weren't in imminent danger. And I mean, given that the scheme had been going on for years, it didn't appear that a lot of harm had come to them anyways, but
I agree with you.
yeah, increasingly, I'm so cynical. Whatever excuse they can find to get in more migrants, they will take. And the bill to the taxpayer is £7 billion, because obviously 21,000 Afghan soldiers translate, and their families translate into something close to 200,000 people. And I want to remind viewers, like during my time as a university student, during my master's studies in the United States, and my time with the German army, no German army soldier or American soldier, or here in the United Kingdom, British soldier, had anything good to say about the Afghan army. We're not talking about the interpreters that interpreted between the British troops and the Afghan army. They were let in a separate scheme. So that was above ground. But the Afghan army, we're returning to what they said, and the amount of sexual violence within the Afghan army, like, you know, typically raping sort of soldiers that could be considered to be mentally retarded, seemed to be a popular pastime in the Afghan army, and that has been told to me by the German army, by friends of mine who served for the United Nations in civilian roles. And there was a British soldier who had a particularly harrowing account where he was patrolling one Afghan street, and there was a little boy coming up, and he, you know, joked around with the little boy, blew up his surgical glove. Oh, look, I can turn this into a balloon. Gave him candy, and out came an Afghan man from a farm compound, snatched the little boy, put him on a table and started raping him. And the British soldier motioned the present Afghan National Army guys, pointed at that, and instead of helping the boy, they joined in on the group rape. And quick reminder, it seemed to be a cultural phenomenon in Afghanistan to hold little boys as the so-called dancing boys. I think it's called bachabazi, that horrible custom, where essentially adult men keep a stable of young boys, typically dressed in women's clothes, and for their sexual gratification. And the Afghan National Army, very often when they ran into recruiting problems, and the Afghan National Police that were even worse, they demanded their own stable of bachabazis. And there were incidences of American soldier, I think one American soldier, I think it was even publicized in the New York Times, that beat the shit out of one of these Afghan commanders when he caught him raping a little boy, and was discharged from the army, because big picture thinking, we have a mission to fulfill here. And I mean, quick recap, what was our mission? Our mission was, to turn Afghanistan into a model democracy and defeat the Taliban. Now, interesting enough, reminder, the Taliban did two things when they came into power. A, they stopped the widespread cultivation of poppies, which then later turned into heroin. And B, they tried to stop that custom of bachabazi.
I was just about to say they put the death penalty on it, in fact.
Yes, they had actually death squadrons patrolling villages, and if they caught anybody. And very often the bachabazi were contacted by the Taliban to turn their guns onto their fellow National Army soldiers, and I don't think anybody can blame these boys that they ended up doing that on a number of occasions. So that's the background of the people that we're letting in. I'm not, well, I don't know. Ordinarily I'm a kind of guy, they're not all like this, but given what I've heard, it seemed to be so widespread that I think there's a fair share of them amongst that we're actually participating in that. But yes, so that's the story. once more the elites using every opportunity they get to relocate certain vulnerable populations, i.e. trained soldiers, how poorly trained and how poorly disciplined and how bad their fighting morale might have been. They're still trained soldiers with that background. And probably quick comment to you on that before we move on to the next case, because it's somewhat linked to this case.
Frankly spoken, we've had kind of the same situation in Germany, not with this much media outrage as we've seen in the UK for the past days before they introduced this injunction. But the same debate has happened in Germany with regard to who's actually coming to the country. Like circling back further on the topic that you covered today. And frankly, we don't know that much about it in Germany. We do know that there's some thousand, maybe interpreters, maybe not, still in Afghanistan, who, according to a Berlin court, have a guaranteed right to actually come to Germany. Keep in mind that as of right now, we all thought there was only some preliminary action being taken, vetting them. It turns out that everyone who's being vetted, apparently, according to a Berlin administrative court, now has the right to come to Germany. And this, like, we all know that in a democracy or in a government, like in a country that is governed with the rule of law in place, just because you have a right to, like, having a right and exercising your right are different things. And interestingly, this German court demands that the German government puts people who have this right that they came up with, that forces the German government to put these people into a position where they can actually exercise their right. Keep in mind, this is like a complete, well, it's ridiculous, one has to say. Every German or every European country, like 26 out of 27 countries, are seriously trying to reduce the amount of illegal migrants and to actually steer legal migration, to actually pick people, to make sure that whoever's coming actually has a job, is ready to get some education, is younger. Even German economic institutions, who typically tend to be kind of outside politics, like they don't really dare do politics except for this the IDW guy, you know his name. This
name escapes me.
Yeah. So there's
remarkable person.
So there's basically one economic scientist or chief economist from some institution who's always coming up with creative ideas. Like, he's the only guy at this point in Germany who thinks that we have too little workers for too much work, basically, to be done. The interesting thing is, though, that while you have 26 countries pulling in one direction, and like no matter whether you take Malta or Lithuania or France or Portugal or Finland, every single country has its own migration issue and has a reason to curb migration and to focus on good migration. And guess what? There's a German government that officially is also in favor of better migration. And what are they doing? Well, the courts say this and that. Well, guess we got to do this. Funny example, and then I'm going to pass on to you again, Christian. Sorry for derailing this. We talked about this some weeks ago with where there were some Somalis who came into Germany from Poland, and officially, like, you cannot enter Germany as an asylum seeker when you're being caught literally stepping over the border. It's clear where you come from. Well, they were pushed back to Poland. And at one point, a German court, also Berlin court, demanded they be brought to Berlin so they can actually have an asylum procedure. And it's just not fun anymore, you know. In 2015, we all felt like these lone callers in the desert And at this point, it feels like Germany is the only country that didn't really catch the message. This country has so many issues. We come into this later in this podcast. Public infrastructure is on the brink of just being overused and under repaired, and crime is a thing. Unemployment is a thing. Unemployment among certain people and certain groups is a thing. The massive abuse of unemployment benefits, the so-called Bürgergeld, is a thing. Keep in mind, to be a Bürger, to be a citizen, to be part of the classic bourgeois, you need to participate in society. Almost half of these people don't even have a German citizenship, so by the German definition, they can't be citizens. Not even in the not just in the immigration sense, but also not in the cultural sense. Like, they're not citoyens of this country. They can be citizens of Afghanistan or Somalia or something, and I hope that they do get a great Bürgergeld there. But this country's on the brink, and sorry for veering off this topic so much, but importing this amount of Afghans is not helping.
No, absolutely. Probably before I segue into the next issue, you mentioned vetting, and vetting is obviously a joke. Once you work with certain countries, you know the documents are not worth the paper that they're printed on, and I mean, quite often highly bureaucratic countries like Germany, but also the US, kid themselves what they can vet, actually. And anecdote, during my time in the German army officer school, the German sniper told me the story of how, again, they caught a bunch of Afghans in the map room and said, look, we want all of them out. I just caught them red-handed. And then the officer was like, don't worry, they're all vetted. And I mean, that's quite often, I mean, viewers and listeners will know, particularly academically trained people, their ability to delude themselves is very much higher than folks without academic training. At this point, it becomes a meme. Segue into, with this explosive climate of importing a lot of people that we've got no idea who they are, but we just know that large parts of the population had exposure and engaged in the rape of little boys. There was a new riot. And remember, these kind of riots seem to be flaring up more in the United Kingdom. There was the case last year in a town where obviously 3 young girls were horrendously butchered by what was called a Welshman. Turns out he was a migrant from Rwanda, even though he'd grown up here, but he clearly did not see himself as culturally close to the United Kingdom, in spite of growing up here and being presented as a Welsh choir boy. Well, he wasn't. Then earlier this year, there was quite recently a riot in Northern Ireland against setting up a migrant hotel there, paying people to stay in hotels, and it was burned to the ground. There is one thing that's interesting about Northern Ireland, because they had an armed civil conflict not that long ago, maybe just a generation ago. And this was a hardcore Protestant area, Bally something, the area was called, very Gaelic name. And they burned down the center, and after 3 young girls had been assaulted by Romani gypsies, I think either from Romania or Bulgaria.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world, because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Euro Bytes will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and ERA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
And then the press was very quickly, racists rioting against gypsy minority. But it turns out that one of the girls was mixed race, so the community there stepped up to their defense. But again, within having a society that still remembers violence and still has, well, quite frankly, the know-how how to do it, they are much more prone to react. React violently and decisively. So, but again, a couple of weeks later, we now have the English town of Epping, where again a 41-year-old Ethiopian migrant in the Guardian is only said, man assaults young girl in Epping, leading to anti-migrant riots. But no, the man was a 41-year-old Ethiopian migrant who had arrived only illegally in the United Kingdom, probably by boat, 8 days prior to assaulting a young girl. So the community was beside themselves. They rioted, and once again we see the double standard, and the British establishment hates talking about two-tier justice. We call Prime Minister Keir Starmer two-tier Keir. He hates that, but once more they crack down. There were videos that show that we probably couldn't show on this channel, but you can just Google them. Where riot police knocked out the teeth of one man, who then showed him his teeth with a riot shield, and they were once again brandished as xenophobes. But there was a very eloquent woman from the neighborhood who said, look, we're protesting against sexual assault on our children. That doesn't make us racist. That doesn't make us per se anti-migrant. But right enough, what happened, you could see all the demonstrators. It was very much grassroots. If you just looked at their placards, they were made of stuff that you just would find in your kitchen. You know, nothing about those placards looked professional. They looked impromptu, they looked homemade, whereas Antifa showed up, and time and again, we've known that before, they showed up in very professional looking, professional rioters / demonstrator placards. But this time, there was a working class community. They were so outraged that the police had to protect Antifa. But still, they're being smeared. And once again, we're seeing what we're seeing in the German press. You see the Guardian headline, and I believe the Guardian is also available in the US, saying riot after xenophobe riot after man assaults young girl, and then it describes what happens, blah 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 blah, and they were rioting and anti-migrant chants were being shouted, which isn't quite so true. They just said, protect our children was the
makes you think, right? Makes you think.
Makes you think, indeed. And but yes, so, and only at the very bottom of the article it actually said, well, it all happened after sexual assault took place, and then they mentioned the nationality of the man. And And that's what we've, and that came only days after in Spain there were riots after a Spanish town that within 10 years suddenly became 1/3 Moroccan, and an old man, a pensioner, was assaulted
Mid
for
60s, yeah.
no apparent reason. And even there were riots, and it seems to be that Europe is waking up. We obviously don't condone violence on this channel, but it's definitely a paradigm shift. And while I say we don't condone violence, we understand where people are coming from because they're not being listened to and they're being talked down to. And quite often, no, it is not a problem. And by the way, if you protest against this or the sexual assault in Germany, you're a bunch of xenophobes. And by the way, we're bringing in more people because we need them. And even if we don't need them, we won't even tell you that they're there. And this is what's happening in Europe. And it is a very interesting development because it happens all over the place. And probably when I say all over the place, before I very quickly mention Serbia as a tiny bullet point, would you want to comment on that latest riot, or should we very quickly?
I'd like to add on this, right? So the interesting thing is that these anti-protests are just, let me say it different, or let me phrase it differently. Back in the day, there used to be the term Kulturkampf, which I think was stated by Oswald Spengler. The initial Kulturkampf was the one between Otto von Bismarck and the Catholic Church.
Right enough, yeah.
And at one point, I think the Kulturkampf that I want to refer to is basically one that, if I recall correctly, has also been used as a term by Oswald Spengler. So it used to be something very much intellectual, like which one of the two cultures that were fighting back then would actually prevail. Keep in mind, one being the Northern European Protestant one and the other one being the Southern European Catholic one. At this point, I feel like Kulturkampf, or the principle, has completely changed, but has somehow remained the same. At this point, it's European culture, and I would consider this Christian culture, only Christian culture, like no suffix, no prefix, is a culture that is being threatened by un-European Muslim culture. Like I don't want to call this culture at all, because keep in mind what you stated just now holds very much true. The moment people say protect our children, and people can, and like some people on the political left consider this anti-migrant statements, something's been really off. Like what I want to say is your bells should be ringing, like this, everything should be tingling with like disgust, and people for some reason are like, no, we need to accept this. This is just the way it is. I don't want to use political compass memes in this, but you know these four quadrants, and you've got this, like there's one version where you've got this guy in the middle. I just want to barbecue, and I feel like this is the German boomer. This is the American boomer for some reason, but it's also the UK one. I don't know whether we all had it too good over the past decades, but what I want to focus on is these things are just happening as some kind of decadence. Once times turn really bad, you can tell that there's some shift in policy, there's some shift in public opinion. We see this in Spain. The protest you mentioned is a great example. There hasn't been anyone in support of these Moroccans because there's nothing to be defended. There's nothing that you can side with them over. On the other side, in Germany, or take the UK, you've got people who are, as you say, astroturfing, like these poor people need our help. It's kind of like these horrible stickers on childless women's cars, who rescued who, with these animal prints and stuff, or paw prints. This is getting out of hand, especially in our countries that still keep the standard of living up. Keep in mind the countries that are waking up, as you put it. you don't want to move to these countries. Americans who are listening to this, Americans who are watching this, you do not want to move to Portugal. You don't want to move to Spain. American public transport is bad. Spanish public transport is non-existent. Thanks to Lyndon B. Johnson, there's in theory there's some bus that's taken you from one point to the other. Like you can't do anything in any place, but in Spain there are major cities, Christian. There's cities with 200,000 people that don't even have a railway station.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there's some high-speed rail in Spain that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's connecting 3 cities. Great.
Yeah, it's got its definitely its outliers, which are fantastic and cheap and highly subsidized, obviously. Yeah.
Well, what I want to say is, you've got this like societies drifting apart further and further, and this is why these protests are happening, I think, more and more. In Germany, where society is still being held together by taxpayers. Keep in mind, dear listeners and dear viewers, 10 million Germans are net payers of taxes. 70 million people are net recipients of taxes. 1/8 of the German populace is supporting this whole system. It's even worse than in America. There's more than 1/8 of Americans who pay in or who have like a positive net amount that they paid into the system. The thing that I just want to convey with this is, as long as Germany can emulate a society where there's kind of like some justice happening, we won't see these large-scale protests that we do see in Spain and Italy, for example, also in the Balkans. But what we will see is that this whole system is crumbling down. So I think, we're up for no good. I like changes in policy when they go in the right direction, but I don't think that violence is necessary. But like, as you mentioned, we do not condone violence. But I do fear that things get more and more crazy. At one point, the barrel is overflowing. Let me just add with one story, if you don't mind. Moving on from one UK topic to a German one. You talked about astroturfing, and last night AfD had the so-called Sommerinterview, the summer interview. It's something that the German public broadcasters are holding every summer, and they're talking about politics. German politics are on summer break. So the party leadership goes into discussions with ARD, and Christians tend to be kind of friendly. No one's being roasted that much. Bundestag is not in session, so it's time to talk about the more in-depth topics. Well, at least it should be, because yesterday when AfD leader Alice Weidel wanted to hold her discussion, out of nowhere, into the so-called Bannmeile, the zone where you're not allowed to do any demonstration that is not permitted prior to happening. Out of nowhere comes a bus from the Center for Political Beauty, Zentrum für politische Schönheit, and they literally, these are the people who built a Holocaust memorial next to Björn Höcke's home in Thuringia. Well, how fun! There's no way to history has been really bad for the Germans, because the Germans did a lot of bad things, and you can disagree with Björn Höcke or not, but there's no reason to put a memorial next to his home. After all, the guy's not banned from doing politics. No court has banned him from doing politics, full stop. So what happened? This bus arrived, blasted a so-called anti-AfD yodeling song from a band from Augsburg, a suburb of Munich. I was looking up this band. It's somewhere in between girls and boys. It's girl bodies but with boy hairstyles. They did some anti-AfD yodeling, and they did it in a volume that the whole interview had to end early. And then they had Omas gegen Rechts. grandmas against the political right. They're my favorite protesters out of them all because I feel like they're just doing this so anyone's paying attention to them, you know.
I would just call them boomers, old boomers revenge.
Well, I wish they were boomers.
They're probably silent generation.
They're worse than boomers. Boomers at least contributed to society. They like these omas. Most of them didn't like. Many of them didn't even help. Many of them didn't. They did not have kids. They call themselves grandmas, but I'm sure many of them are neither grandmas nor mothers.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, you know, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You know, you're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Nor wives, nor friends to anyone except for their group.
Yeah, right enough.
Enough said on this topic. We talked about Protestants earlier. I mentioned Eastern Europe. I've heard that you brought something from Serbia.
Yeah, just a very short bullet point before we going to finish on another favorite topic of yours and mine, no doubt. Serbia. So I think when Americans think about Serbia, some of you might still remember NATO's intervention, humanitarian intervention in 1998, and the stealth bomber shot down brilliant memes. Where Serbian protesters held a placard saying, "I'm sorry, we shot down your plane. We didn't know it was invisible." Others, sort of probably most prominent Serbian these days, would be Novak Djokovic, the very based tennis player who also refused to take the vaccine. And you would think quite often Americans and folks on the dissident right in Western Europe think, oh, Eastern Europe, that's where the world is still normal, that's where people are based. But turns out they're just a little bit further behind and they're subject to the same pressures. And we had mentioned again AstroTurf, and no doubt the George Soros Open Society is exerting its pressures there, so is the EU. And now Serbia has concluded, it's called a migration, worker mobility scheme. It's one of these things, interesting enough, the United Kingdom has also concluded a worker mobility scheme after there was massive pressure on Keir Starmer, and he took a turn to the right, saying, no, we need to control migration, we need to deport people. And then they had a worker mobility scheme where they're like, no, it works in both ways. I mean, a lot of Brits want to go and work in India. And you're like, yeah, that's not very convincing. The same was rolled out for Serbia, but this time for 100,000 young people from either direction, Ghanaians from Ghana going to Serbia to work, but also young Serbians being very much welcome to go and work in Ghana. Footnote, Serbia has a youth unemployment of 25%. When members of my family last went to vacation to Serbia, they all said, look, it's a gigantic problem. Most of the young Serbs all leave for Western Europe or the more affluent Balkan states like Croatia or wherever that may be. So 25% youth unemployment. And again, Lucas, at the beginning of the episode, you coined the phrase of too few workers for too much work to be done. And that appears to be the case in Serbia as well. We need 100,000 Ghanaians to counter our disastrous demographics, whilst 25% of all young Serbs are unemployed. I leave it there. Any comments from your side before we segue into the topic?
It's kind of, people on the left oftentimes consider people on the right to be anti-enlightenment. But what's more anti-enlightenment than getting, people who can't read or write into your country? We're against this. People on the left, hear us out.
Also, people on the left, please be left for once. It used to be the left that were big.
Yeah, please put on some solidarity with these people who you might be interested in helping at one point.
Yes.
Well,
helping your unemployed youth rather than driving down their wages even further.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be a leftist position not that long ago. Yeah,
that's true. But there's one last topic I have, and this is swimming. Christian, do you like swimming?
I very much enjoy a good swim, yes.
And so do French people. Let me tell you one story. Once upon a time, there was a Swiss little town. It's called Pontoute. It's on the Swiss-French border. And everyone was happy, but then suddenly the French town on the other side of the border, they closed down the swimming establishments, like the public pools. So François and Lohmeier and all the French, they had to leave and go to Switzerland. Well, no. Abdul had to go to Switzerland because the Swiss had a great swimming pool. So what happened? Out of nowhere, the police had to show up every day, literally several times. Keep in mind, Pontoute is a town with 6,600 people. And the police had to come, according to a German public broadcaster, they had to, let me look this up.
I think it was several times a day.
Yeah, but you need to know the number. Seriously, you need to hear the number. It is incredible. Well, I can't really find it, but I can find the headline from the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, which says the Pontrud swimming pool is the new place of desire, the place of longing for the Germans. And this basically summarizes it. So this Swiss town has said, us 6,600 people, we've had it. And they started banning every single foreigner, except for foreigners who've got a work permit or foreigners who've got a confirmation from a hotelier that they are staying there. Probably, or also probably people who speak German or French, like French with an accent, or English or something, or, well, people who know how to behave. Guess what? They reduced the amount of police interventions from 20 or so a week to 0. The pool is crowded. Everyone has fun. Just not the people who need to stay in France. And guess what the people say now? Well, you'd think they say anything in French, but I'm sure they brought an Arab interpreter there for the newspapers. They say, well, if the Swiss don't want to have our business, the Germans shall have our business. And guess what, Christian? I guarantee that in either 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be discussing why is there a sudden rise in sexual crimes, why is there a rise in violent crimes, in theft, etc., in German swimming pools in the southwest part bordering France. Hear me out. It's going to happen. Last thing that I want to add, and at this point, this will be my last point of this episode. Germany is learning how to deal with aggressive people, and we saw this in the Bavarian town of Kulmbach. For those of you who don't know Kulmbach, it's it's somewhere near Munich. It's like let's say an hour away from
known for beer.
Yeah, exactly. So at one point there's been someone who beat someone else up with a belt. The guy was from Syria. The victim was German. Guess what the city of Kulmbach is doing now? It also used to be the Altstadtfest, so the city center party. Old Town party, basically. What are they doing?
They're probably banning all belts, knowing Germany.
Well, they can't ban the belts, but they're banning all weapons for sure. This is the German solution to everything now, let's just ban the weapons. Let's just ban them. Anything slide?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had that before. I mean, I remember returning to an old favorite of mine in Bremen, a discotheque, they call them clubs these days, and there was a weapons prohibited, as in guns prohibited sign suddenly on it. And I'm like, well, whoever has one will be mightily impressed. I think I need to dash, but on a lot of cheerful notes, I'm sure in this bizarre timeline that we've entered, we will have tons of stuff to talk about when we reconvene at our usual Sunday. And sure. Wish you all a cheerful week.
Thank you. Have a cheerful week, Christian. And dear listeners, viewers, thank you for being part of Euro Bytes, and see you and talk to you again very soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.